Hello guys, it's Huz. I just wanted to do a podcast today. It's been another really shitty day. Every time I wake up in the mornings, it feels like I'm waking up to a bloody horror. And that horror seems to be Gaza, basically. It's like a never-ending nightmare. Every morning you wake up, you're watching Twitter, switch the phone on, 27 people dead, 50 people dead. Every day you wake up, and it's exactly the same thing. There's no difference whatsoever. Every single day this last 3 or 4 weeks, all I'm seeing is news brought by my friend Suppressed and other people, or the people who are controlling Hassam's account, who are the original Twitter or the journalists from Gaza. And it's another set of people killed. And I want people to understand, this isn't a war. What's happening is basically what we call siege economics. It's famine by remote control. That's what we've got at the moment. Yeah. Hunger is being used as a geopolitical weapon, leverage. Because you don't get famine without intent. These guys have done this on purpose. They are literally doing this on purpose. It's not accidental that you're starving 2.2 million people. You don't just bomb bakeries, grain silos, bulldoze farmland, and then plead logistics. The logistics is the problem. We can't. The problem is trying to get stuff in. What they're doing is they're creating these pressures to weaponize the hunger in people, the drive for food, the hunger that people have. They're weaponizing that. Gaza isn't facing a natural disaster here. It's enduring an artificial one. And it's crafted by Israeli bureaucracy, which is backed by fighter jets. It's maintained by the blockade, by the Rafah border, the Erez border, where you've got these settlers that are stopping it from coming in. You know, the UN has said Gaza is the hungriest place on earth. Every single person there, man, woman, and child, is at risk of famine. This isn't some tragic consequence of some war. This is the Israeli government. This is their method. They spent decades mastering the slow chokehold. They block ports, control borders, dictate what comes in, what doesn't go in. Flour, only if it's a limited supply. Fuel, not unless it runs out in a hospital. Medical aid, conditional, selective. And when it, when it does actually get through to them, it's controlled. The Palestinians have got no control over it. You need to understand, there's a leaked document from the Israeli Coordination of Government Activities, or something called COGAT, dating back from 2007, people. It refers to calculating the minimum number of calories needed per Palestinian to avoid malnutrition. It's not to provide dignity, but to manage optics. Why? They don't want to make Gaza not look like a humanitarian disaster. They want to make it look like it's an accident. How much can they get away with? That's the planning level that these people go to. And people need to understand the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, this US and Israeli coordinated mechanism for aid distribution, this bullshit they've come up with, is nothing but a control valve. It isn't humanitarian. It's there to instill discipline. The aid isn't there. Yeah. to give you food. This is used to mark targets. Think about it for a second. They declare a humanitarian corridor. They release a map. Thousands of people come, mostly women and children and the elderly. And then guess what? When there's enough people dense together, they open fire. That's what happened yesterday. Or they let drones track movement just close to the gate, close it, and then bomb the whole zone. May 27th in Rafah wasn't a tragedy. It was a textbook operation and an application of this exact same thing. Today, people came for flour, they found bullets. And this isn't new. This is something that happens on a regular basis. February 29th, I don't know if you guys remember or not, but Israeli forces opened fire on Al Rashid Street, where crowds gathered for the aid. More than 100 people were killed. And Israel blamed the crowd for panicking. Said trucks were being looted. The video evidence, like their own, including their own drone footage, shows that it was systematic targeting, not chaos, control. Food becomes the bait, and hunger becomes movement. Movement becomes the target. You understand me? That movement becomes the target. And what does the West say? What does Britain say? What do the so-called humanitarian international community say? They say Israel has the right to defend itself. From what? From the people that are starved? From the children that are drinking sewage water? There's no infrastructure left. Gaza's farmland, especially in the northern region, near Beit Hanun, have been cratered by artillery. The WFP says over 90% of agriculture capacity has been destroyed. Fishermen are shot if they go above 3 miles away from the shore. And when all aid convoys are coming in through Kerem Shalom or Erez, it's blocked by these settlers. They're turned around or delayed or denied. Thousands and thousands of metric tons of food and medicine is rotting in containers just miles from the strip, blocked by Israel on the grounds of security review. This is not disorganization. This is by design. When you cut people off from food, from water, from fuel, when you reduce them to survival mode, you're not trying to govern them, you're trying to break them. This is not about hunger, it's about control. It's about manufacturing a dependence on them. It's about grinding down the will of these people until they beg for conditions of their own occupation. And when they do beg, when they do reach out for that sack of rice or bag of flour, they're getting shot. This is what starvation looks like in 2025. High-tech, internationally endorsed, fed through a pipeline of military contracts and PR statements which are issued around the globe for them. People, this is not a famine. This is the policy. This is not failure. This is punishment. This is not war. This is siege with spreadsheets. A genocide with calorie counters. And every day we stay quiet. We become part of it. You need to raise up your voices. I need to talk to you about these kill zones. The places where aid becomes the bait. How do you move a starving people? It's really simple. How do you herd the displaced, the traumatized, the broken? You dangle a bit of food. In Gaza, food isn't sustenance. It's a signal. It tells you where the trap is today. They post drop-off points online, distribute flyers, coordinate the UN agencies. They set the theatre in place. And then when the crowds are full, the cameras are down, and the desperation has peaked upon these people, they open fire. This isn't theory. This is documented, repeated, and ignored. February 29th, Al Rashid Street, west of Gaza. Thousands lined up for flour. 115 people killed. More than 700 were wounded. This is after Israel just opened fire. At least 80 were shot directly. Israeli force tried to claim, oh, it's a stampede. We all know, we saw the drone footage. They targeted people. March 16, Al Nablus roundabout. A large crowd of people gathered, and the use of live ammunition killed at least 18 people. Many of them were shot while they were running away, retreating. April 4th, Gaza City. Over 20 killed and another coordinated aid distribution. Witnesses described the military vehicles firing into the crowd from a distance with no provocation whatsoever. None. They just put them in these kill boxes and they kill them. And now, May 27th, as I said before, more than 30 people killed, dozens injured. People were waiting for food and they left in pieces. Do you understand me? These are military rehearsals. They're repeated under a cover of plausible deniability. And the pattern is always the same. They mark the aid drop point, allowed the crowd to build up, and they strike just after the peak desperation. When you see those people with their pots and pans, that's when they attack. This Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, yeah, the so-called aid body that's jointly backed by America and Israel. And it acts as both bait and excuse. And it's basically, it's providing protection for Israel, because they go like, oh, they're feeding them. But there's no accountability, no warning when the killings begin. This humanitarian space no longer exists in Gaza, and people need to understand that. Not physically, not legally, not morally. Even the World Food Programme suspended operation in parts of Gaza, citing danger zones and uncontrollable targeting. And all of it is done by the IDF. To let that sink in, when even the food agencies are fleeing the Israelis. And the Israelis have basically militarized the bread lines, made flour deliveries effectively a battlefield. They're weaponizing hope. They use drones not to monitor safely, but to track the density. And as I said earlier, they're watching the largest concentration of starving civilians, and then they drop bombs or send in troops, or in the case of yesterday, actual tanks blowing people up, firing on the crowds. Now, when a former prime minister tells you we didn't use tanks, you can assume 100% that they are lying motherfuckers, and they did use tanks as well. In February, the February massacre, the analysis confirmed it was an Elbit system Hermes 450 drones. They were being used as overhead reconnaissance, and these are the same drones exported globally by Israel for their tested capabilities. Where are these things tested? Gaza. You want aid? Run this gauntlet. Let's see how our systems work. You want water? Step into the line of fire. Civilians in Gaza are being funneled into death corridors. This isn't about controlling territory. This isn't about breaking population coherence, dispersing families, pulverizing community, teaching people that safety is a lie in Gaza. And while this unfolds, the United States of America continues to ship arms every single fucking day. The UK continues to license surveillance technology. Germany continues to block investigations. France continues to ban Palestinian marches. Everyone is in on it. Everyone pretending not to see a thing. Every time you see a child bleeding in the dirt, understand this. This child followed the sign that said help is here. And the world handled Israel. The pen and paper that wrote the sign. We handed them that pen and paper. There's no such thing as a neutral zone in Gaza anymore. Not for aid, not for civilians, not even for children. This is not collateral. This is the strategy and policy, and this is what the war in Israel is all about. This is a war on the survival of the people of Gaza. They've turned food into a tool of terror for these people. And our world leaders, our so-called leaders, they've chosen to look away. They know. They just don't care. They don't give a flying fuck about what's happening over there right now. Gaza's not being bombed, people. It's being deleted. It's being deleted bit by bit, systematically, mercilessly, and with the full knowledge of the world. And every single one of these leaders gets reports that tells them exactly what's going on. You can't talk about military targets when every school, every market, every prayer mat has already been flattened and is bloodied. How many of these places have they not destroyed? How many have they actually left? We're not witnessing warfare anymore. We're witnessing the elimination of the Palestinian people in Gaza. It's carried out in the full view of satellites, journalists, and the institutions that claim to uphold human rights. They look at these mosques, the sacred places. There's not one left. Did you know that the Great Omari Mosque in Gaza, which is over 1,300 years old, that heralds back to the time of, Rasulullah Muhammad, it's been flattened. Absolutely flattened. Sayyid al-Hashim Mosque in the Dara district. It's a spiritual and cultural anchor. Destroyed. The Ibn Uman Mosque in Shuja'iyya, 15th century place of worship, leveled. The Khalid Ibn al-Walid Mosque in Khan Yunis, obliterated. al-Nasr Mosque in Beit Hanun, built in 1239, is now ash. This isn't accidental. This is what you call cultural liquidation. This is a war on memory itself. They're trying to remove the memory of these places. They're deleting Palestinian life. And the hospitals. The last refuge in any war is a hospital. Al-Shifa Hospital, Gaza's largest once a lifetime ago, invaded, shelled, and ultimately rendered inoperable. Al-Ahli Hospital, bombed more than once even as patients were being treated. Indonesian hospital in Beit Lahliya, surrounded, staff detained, power cut. This is systematic attack on places which are protected under the Geneva Convention. You're not allowed to do that. Indonesian hospital in Beit Lahliya, surrounded, staff detained. Again, Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital, Gaza's only cancer center, is reduced to rubble. The Nasser Medical Complex, heavily damaged and overwhelmed. They are destroying everything that is trying to keep people alive. If you remember, I was talking to you about destroying the doctors is the way to try and destroy the hope of these people. They're killing every doctor they can anyway. And now they're flattening almost every hospital there is. And something that people need to understand about the level of thirst that's taking hold in Gaza at the moment. This water situation, it's got 3 main desalination plants. All are damaged, are non-operational. The electricity is gone. Gaza's power plant, bombed early in the war, left the strip basically in a near permanent blackout. You know, sewage floods the streets. There's no working sanitation. The waste spills into drinking water. So imagine that. They don't have water coming in, and now there's the sewage is going into that as well. There's a recent report from UNRWA and the World Health Organization, and they confirmed, that 90% of Gaza's water is unfit for human consumption. Children are drinking from puddles. When it rains, it's the only time they get any kind of decent levels of water. The pipes are riddled with disease. These surgeries are, they're performing basically under phone torchlights. Incubators have gone cold. The medicines are spoiled without refrigeration. The bodies that are buried in mass graves, because they've got no way of getting these people buried properly. There's no fuel. There's no electricity. The smell, a doctor was saying today, the smell of death in Gaza is so overpowering. And families can't even retrieve their dead. They can't go and get them. There's a place called Rimal. This was, Gaza's commercial and cultural heart. There's no pulse left. There's just concrete and smoke. Concrete and smoke. And they are grinding the concrete into dust. They've got machines that they're using to turn what they've got left of the concrete blocks and whatever else into dust in Gaza. The streets in Khuza, Zaytun, Tal al-Hawa, the streets all, they've got carved with craters. Imagine a street that's just made up of craters. What remains of the homes are uninhabitable. They're just shelled out. Children are sleeping and living in tents, or they're finding somewhere under a broken slab of a roof somewhere, and they sleep there, hoping that roof doesn't collapse on them overnight. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, has said that over 1.9 million Gazans, nearly 85% of the population, are now fully displaced. They got nowhere to run to, nowhere safe, no guarantees of survival. You can't live in a graveyard, people. And Gaza has been turned into one. It's not by chance, not by necessity, by the method and by the blueprint of this military operation, this campaign of annihilation. What's happening in Gaza is not humanitarian collapse. It's a stripping away of the very possibility of life here. And the most sickening part of it is they're doing it in slow motion. They do it with just enough delay between bombing to let the world look away. We look away and they do another one. And they do another one because we're not watching. Gaza's not being destroyed here. Gaza is being erased off the map. And when they're done, they just don't want the people gone. They want the memory of all of this to go. The evidence, the names, the roots. This is cultural genocide. And this is not a side effect. It's their plan. If we do not name it and we do not scream it, then we're helping finish the job. Call it what it is. It is a genocide. This is a genocide. These bombs are dropped by Israel. But the silence is signed in London and in Washington. Don't talk to me about ceasefires. When British planes are landing in Tel Aviv. Don't talk to me about peace when BAE Systems is cashing in blood-soaked, in these blood-soaked checks. This government has no moral ground to stand on. Rishi Sunak sends thoughts and prayers while he was in charge, while he was still approving these export licenses. James Cleverly, he's foreign minister. What did he do? He waltzed through diplomatic niceties while phosphorus fell on civilians. Keir Starmer, he can't even say the word genocide without tripping over his own cowardice. He's refused to back a ceasefire. He's purged the Labour members for speaking out. Like Zara Sultana, Richard Burgeon, Upsana Begum. They're all being kicked out of the party. He's locked arms with the lobbyists and he's cheering this carnage on. He is encouraging this. That's all it can be. So you cannot separate Starmer from this bloodletting. He has chosen to align himself with power and definitely not justice. I think people need to understand, Britain's role isn't passive. Our military bases in Cyprus, the RAF Akrotiri and Dakalia, are being used to support surveillance flights over Gaza. Those flights pass information to Israel. That information in turn gives into coordinates. Those coordinates then turn into corpses. So when Number 10 issues statements about restraint, know this, they're restraining nothing. They're enabling everything. There isn't any neutrality. This is full-on complicity. And every bomb that drops with our software guiding systems, every child buried under rubble, tracked by our drones, because they're made in Britain, that blood is British. And we will be remembered for it. We can't bomb a hospital, flatten a mosque, shoot people queuing for food and flour, and still claim you're acting in self-defense. You can't do that. But Israel does, and the world lets them get away with it. They've silenced the reporters, killed 221 journalists up until now. And they've banned every single international media outlet from Gaza. They allow their little minions to go in and sit in the chair of Sinwar, but they weren't international journalists are not allowed in. So not a single foreign journalists allowed in because they cite security problems. They're worried about the journalists. So we're left with the videos shaky, grainy, screaming, and the official IDF press releases that follow them, all lies. It's not journalism, people. That's the regime's PR. In Gaza, the truth isn't the first casualty. It's the primary and only target. You don't get to verify facts when the witnesses are buried, people. And while the truth dies, what does this international community of ours do? They fund it, they arm it, they give it cover. This is what they do. Let's look at the United States. Trump is back in the office. I want peace. I want the Nobel Peace Prize. Since January, he's poured more than $12 billion into the Israeli war machine. He says he wants the war to end quickly. But he signed off on bunker busters and drone tech for them. He sends over Steve Witkoff, his main man, to talk about Gaza's future. He thinks it's somewhere like it's a plot of land for sale or something. Trump's peace plan isn't peace. It's a property development on stolen land. That's what it is. He wants Gaza to be turned into the next Dubai with luxury hotels, marinas, but without a single Palestinian left in the view. None of them need to be there. He doesn't see a humanitarian crisis. He's looking at a beachfront. That's not policy. That's colonial real estate with a kill clause for every single Palestinian. And yes, Biden's hands are filthy too. Before him, he funded the October massacre. He vetoed ceasefires, gave Netanyahu the green light from day one to do whatever he wants to do. On Biden's watch, yeah, and Trump is basically, he's picked up the flamethrower that was left by Biden and is burning everything else down. Don't tell me the Americans want peace. America supplies the bullets, blocks the UN votes, and then they ask for restraint from their people they are supporting and supplying. Britain is the same hypocrisy in a sharper suit. Keir Starmer basically continued the work of Sunak's government. They kept the weapons flowing from 8th of October onwards. British-made parts have been found in Israeli jets and drones bombing Deir al-Balah and Jabalia. We're exporting the tools of genocide and call it defence cooperation. And what did they do in Westminster? David Lammy today, James Cleverly before him, offer thoughts and prayers for the innocent victims. Britain's role is really simple. We mourn by day, and by night we manufacture. I can't separate Starmer from this bloodletting. We're pretending there's a justice system in place. We have to be absolutely clear, there are no human rights here. And if there are, it's conditional. And the Palestinians don't count. They don't qualify. The ICC keeps talking about warrants, investigations, gathering evidence. They've had the files for months. Nothing has happened. War crimes are being live streamed. You don't need more time. You actually need a backbone. Because here's the truth of it. The institutions that claim to uphold international law have become spectators. And every delay in action is a green light for more death. That's all it is. This isn't diplomatic failure. It's the geopolitical consensus that Palestinian lives are disposable. And the world is just not just standing by, you're standing with the killers. And in Gaza, The silence is filled with the screams of hundreds of thousands of people every day. What I'd like to see is military intervention. I mean, what I want to do is let's just stop pretending that diplomacy is working. Let's stop pretending international law has teeth. It doesn't. Every tool of pressure has been tried. Ceasefire, resolutions, ICC referrals, UN statements, arms embargo campaigns, Palestine action. And every single one of them has been spat on. Israel doesn't give a damn. They don't fear condemnation. They love it. They don't fear the isolation because they'll never be isolated. It doesn't fear The Hague because it knows no one will act. But it's come to a point now where watching is not enough. When documenting is not enough. When protesting is not enough. We're at that point now. This genocide will not stop until something interrupts physically. We need to physically stop it. Until a red line is drawn, not in words, but in actual force. I don't mean an invasion, and it doesn't mean an occupation of Israel. It means a multinational force that says, enough is enough. A blockade of weapons, an enforcement of a no-fly zone, protected humanitarian corridors, real military consequences for illegally bombing campaigns, real consequences for those who refuse to stop killing. I'm not suggesting we flatten Tel Aviv, but you may need to ground its air force permanently. We need to jam their targeting systems, which are being made by us. You might need to do what the world has failed to do in Rwanda, Srebrenica, and every massacre we promised to never repeat. Because Gaza doesn't need more statements, people. It needs protection. And if the international community can't find the courage to deliver that, then let's be honest. They're not a community. They're a cartel of fucking cowards. That's what they are. If we let this stand as it is, we bury our humanity. And do you know what the worst part is? It's not the bombing. It's not even the killing. It's the world has adjusted to it. It has adjusted to it. We've normalized slaughter, normalized starvation. The entire government, all of them, press rooms and institutions have learnt to flinch away, to scroll past genocide like it's a background noise or something. I can't hear it. That's what terrifies me, because this is not actually just the destruction of Gaza, people. It's actually the destruction of us as the human race. Of what it means to actually care, to act, to even recognize another human being who's in pain. I don't know how many times do we have to watch people dig their children out of rubble with their bare hands. How many times must we hear the words massacre and civilians in the same headline before we come too numb to react? And that's what's happened. There are no more warnings to issue. There's nothing left to de-escalate. Israel is doing exactly what it said it would do, and no one is stopping it. Not a single person is stopping it. 90% of Gaza is uninhabitable. All the hospitals are gone. Schools are gone. Mosques are gone. The people are eating leaves, drinking salt water, dying in ditches of hunger, while Western leaders pat themselves on the back for a balanced diplomacy. They say both sides must show restraint. It's as if the corpse and the executioner are equals here. That's what it feels like. Here's a corpse, it's equal with the execution of that corpse. It's as if we can mediate between the flame and the body that's burning. We are far beyond this failed politics now. We're traveling down spiritual failure. This is the failure of our hearts and our souls. This is complete moral collapse. And everyone who can speak, who can stand, you have a duty, not just to post, not just to protest, but to refuse. Refuse this language of neutrality. Refuse this cowardice of complexity. Refuse to accept the framing that genocide is a debate topic. Because if we don't, then we are the generation that stood by while Gaza was turned into a fucking graveyard. We are the witness who said nothing loud enough. We've become the bystanders, history, one day that will spit on us. I don't know about you, but I want to be able to look back and say, I did not let this pass in silence. I know I haven't. I did not make excuses for murder. And I did not accept that some lives are cheaper than others. So there's still time to act, but that time for pretending is over. This isn't a humanitarian crisis. This is a genocide. And the world is watching. But it's on us to make sure the world can never say it didn't know. We all know what it is. You've got to do the right thing now. It's time. I'm so sorry this has overrun beyond belief. I feel so passionately and so sorry for the people in Gaza. And every day I wake up to more people being killed overnight. Every day. One day I'd like to wake up and not have the nightmare of 50 people killed overnight. I wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. That's all I see. Good night.